Let's get things ready to start our live stream in a few minutes. Just 2 minutes until the live stream begins. We're going to talk about an interesting topic, which are a culture from 10,000 years ago, something like that, is really cool. Really cool. Let's get things sorted out here. The screen looks good. All we have to do now is wait a minute before we can start the meeting. I hope everyone is doing well. Rio de Janeiro is in a political attack typical of the far right, trying to win votes by killing the poor. It's a very strange idea. I was quite revolted by it. But in Sao Paulo, almost the same thing happens. They invade favelas to kill poor people, to claim they are fighting crime. And they leave out the rich kids who control the whole group. So let's go. That's it. Let's see if we can figure out how to deal with this sort of thing. Okay, it's 8 p.m. and we're about to start our live stream today. We are in Sao Paulo. Today is October 29th, 2025. Today's live stream is about the consciousness of the Umbu trees, faith, body, and sacred practice. And this awareness of the Umbus will give us some interesting insights. First, the Umbus are a civilization that lived in southern Brazil, encompassing people from Argentina, Uruguay, and other countries further south 10,000 years ago. They lived here 10,000 years ago. How do we know this? Usually the vestige of the Umbus is a quartered spearhead. This quartered spearhead was made with another material by striking it, okay? Or sometimes it can be a dried silk horn striking a small stone and chipping away at it. But this rhythm is very synchronous. It's an art. It's something that, can you imagine an artisan making a sculpture with another small stone? So look, 10,000 years ago, and the stone came out perfectly, the spearhead. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're going to try to put forward some hypotheses. Obviously, these are just my ideas, right? A hypothesis about what Umbu consciousness was like, okay? All these ideas also come from a conversation I had at the Sambaki Museum in Joinville. I exchanged ideas with the researchers there, and they even told me, Jackson, we don't know anything about neuroscience. What could neuroscience offer that's new and could provide a different perspective on these objects, on this materiality found at archaeological sites? Well, you see, they are specialists in this materiality, in this archaeological cycle. And my studies on neuroscience give me insights into how the Umbu people had consciousness, what their consciousness was like. Obviously, even 10,000 years ago, the brain was exactly the same as ours. There's no difference whatsoever. But let's go. The Umbus people didn't think about doing it. They were the doing. That's a very big difference. That's a very big difference. We, the colonial people, are always thinking about what we're going to do. The Umbu people were the doing. According to these ideas, according to these hypotheses, and we're going to work on that today. The Umbu people lived in zone 2, basically. It's not a pressure from the body to do something. You know, when I told you that you're in zones 1, 2, and 3, right? This is a breakdown I'm making to make it easier to understand. Obviously, as I tell you, each breakdown is a loss. Zones 1, 2, and 3. Zone 1, I impose tension on my body to do something, so I impose tension. Zone 2, fluidity, flow. I'm doing it without any pressure. Nobody asked, the body is doing it. And zone 3, someone told me to do it. So look, zone 2, enjoyment, doing it, standing still or sleeping, enjoyment. Zone 1, me forcing myself to do it. I have to do it. I force my body to do it. Zone 2, I am doing it. So high performance doing was zone 2, but high performance doing requires imitation, habits, belief, faith, blind faith, and high performance. To create a spearhead man, high performance, doing that thing there, hitting the stone and removing it and feeling the stone. We're going to talk about that today and try to show you that many times your doing is more important than your thinking. Your thinking can hinder the doing, especially for people who are older, over 60 years old, like me. Over 60 years old, doing. Don't get bogged down in thinking, doing, because doing is the basic structure. You It becomes about doing. You don't think about doing. You asterisk or asterisk doing. You've learned enough. You're over 60. Doing the right things, but don't even think about what's wrong. Doing right. That's all. That's good. Umbu. The body thought with the world, not about the world. A fantastic difference in my ideas about the Umbu people. And some objects, some stories seem to indicate this. What does it mean to think with the world and not about the world? When European colonization comes, it comes and says, look, the planet, some deity made this planet for you. So now I'm going to think about this world, how this world does good for me, and Umbuja doesn't. How do you reward together? So it's not about it's with, it's a subtle difference, but you'll realize it soon. Without expecting rewards, Lombo trusts his body to know what it's doing. After 60 years, you've already learned what you should have learned. Can you have some skills? Of course. Can you learn new skills? Of course. But normally you trust your body and just do it. Until I was 44, especially between, I don't know, 12 and 44 years old, I lived on a mission, an idea, a belief of doing things to be rewarded, to be recognized. My mistake. Until I was 44, I sought recognition, I sought to be rewarded. And from 44 onwards, I switched gears. So look, without expecting rewards, trusting the body that knows how to do it. You've already learned, you know how to do it. If you start forcing rewards, you'll look for structures to act within, and you'll get lost. To do something without seeking reward, without seeking recognition, without seeking acknowledgement, flow, enjoyment. Zone 2, do. It's funny how sometimes this doing can be a little discouraging because it's doing without seeking reward, without seeking dopamine. Not even your own body will reward you because it's a flow. You just do. And it goes on and it goes on, and life keeps rolling on. The act of doing something, the gesture anticipates the thought. You do it and think about it. If you don't do it, that thought won't come. There are many people, and I myself do it, but where do these thoughts come from? If you're within a philosophy that seeks that ancestor from 10,000 years ago, the very act itself is already anticipating it. You're doing it to think, not thinking to do it. But look, there are many people who act and do things without thinking and have no expertise whatsoever. Here, expertise is key. You've already learned, you're going to do it. The gesture will anticipate the action. Okay, and another thing that one group had, which was really cool, was that the group was like one person. The whole group, because they were synchronized by nature, the type of body, the territory, the whole group was one thing. So the group felt like one. It's funny because sometimes you might say, but how can a collective consider itself one? You can notice that sometimes even the shark that's going to attack a school of fish, it tries to scatter the school, it tries to scatter that bunch of animals that it It will attack, because if you attack a collective, it's very complicated. You attack the collective here, the collective attacks in the Franks. This is very important for you to know. When a collective becomes one, it is much stronger than each individual within that collective. So whenever someone tries to destroy someone, they first separate that person from the collective, remove them from the collective, or make the collective attack them. That person becomes vulnerable. That's how things in a somewhat savage way happen. Let's go. Now I'm going to delve a little deeper into something interesting. Semiotics. Semiotics is It would be the study of semiotics. It would be more or less the meaning of things and symbols, okay? It's a cool thing. In semiotics, and a little bit in semiotics and philosophy, we even get to a point called qualha, a Brazilian Portuguese word for a certain type of color. Qualha, I told you, is sometimes yellow, okay? But sometimes I say yellow, and yellow has a brightness, an intensity, a color, an intensity, in the way I phrase it, yellow. So it has a qualha, how much brightness this yellow has when I say the word yellow. That's a semiotics of yellow. So in Western semiotics, both Peirce and modern neuropsychology, the sign is a representation. For the Umbuto people, the symbol is dedicated to action. The act of doing gives rise to the sign. The sign in semiotics is a representation, and humor is the act of doing. This brings to mind something that's cool, which Marcos Meyer, a psycholinguistic researcher, says that the entire content is a whole paragraph. The grammatical unit is a whole paragraph. So you take the entire meaning of a whole paragraph, gives you movement, an idea, a semiotics, an intention, an affordance. Remember affordance, you finish reading the paragraph and you have that affordance in 150 milliseconds. You have a desire to, you keep reading the paragraph, a desire to connect, a desire to connect. You finish a paragraph, it ends somewhere, wow. And that desire arose. So that's semiotics. It's the symbol there, but of a doing, of something happening within the paragraph. Since we use words, it becomes something we use as tools. The Umbu people won't do it themselves. And the doing itself, what will it give you? It will give you what we've already discovered in neuroscience, which is the mirror neuron. When someone is doing something, that thing is being represented in your head as if you were doing it. Do you understand? So what happens now with this Western semiotics of Peirce, even neuropsychology and so on, which places the sign as representation? In Humboldt, it already goes to the origin, to do, to show, to simulate. Being, you understand its origin, its root, its being. So I'm going to talk a little bit now to see if you can understand how the Umbu people take a stone, a large stone, start hitting it with a dry horn, or with another slightly harder stone, keep hitting it, and suddenly that stone becomes a spearhead. Wow, 10,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. It's very important for you to know the following. Our neural connections begin even in the baby while still in the mother's womb. It starts with a kind of little extension, a connection, an electrical pull. It's an electrical link. This electrical connection is very fast. It's not a chemical synapse, it's electrical, it's very fast. This connection is fast, very fast indeed. At the level of detection, 4 or 5 microseconds, it's very, very fast. When we look at the EEG, we'll see large areas being activated, but this 4 or 5 microsecond electrical connection is a little more difficult to detect. Sometimes in the evoked potential, you can pick up something of it, but it's harder to detect. The EEG is normally macro, large areas being activated, but the electrical connection is there. So what happens? In an electrical connection, one part connects, and when there is this electrical connection, this link, this electrical synapse, something different happens. The signal comes from here. Go over there and come back here. It's bidirectional. So electrical synapses are bidirectional. That's the concept I need to leave you with. Chemical synapses are unidirectional. They only go that way or only come back. If I'm on the neuron cell body, it goes to the axon and I'm sending it out. If I'm on the other side, for example, I'm sending it from the brain or spinal cord side. In other neuron cell bodies, it senses that the muscle has contracted and sends a signal back to the spinal cord, indicating the muscle's position. This is proprioception. Do you understand? So the neurons close, and when the signal acts on the muscle is sensitized by another neuron cell body that sends the impulse there. Oops, the muscle has changed, so you know the position of your muscle. But this is a chemical synapse. I'm talking about electricity. In electricity, the signal goes and comes back. In the same beam, it returns. Molecules pass through. It's direct. So this is very fast, very, very fast. What are we talking about here? When you start to create habits, customs, imitation, habits, custom, beliefs, faith, blind faith, and high performance, you are creating from the concept of repetition here. You are reinforcing the taught connection. Neurons that fire together tend to fire together. Neuroscientists will explain these things better. You increase the synapse connections. If you repeat, these connections will strengthen. The activation will reinforce, it will thicken. But if you repeat, it will create myelin to become isolated. Yes, but it's not just one contact with another. It's brain networks that are connecting. Okay, but what if we are in imitation? Customs, imitation, habits, customs. When it starts to reach belief, that dream begins to become isolated. From belief to faith, it begins to isolate itself, begins to create a myelin, begins to become robust. It's no longer possible to interfere. It's no longer possible to think about what I'm doing because it's practically automatic. But suddenly, a little more of these circuits connecting to each other goes into blind faith. Blind faith, these circuits have interneurons that connect one circuit to another, and this connection is electrical. It's a synchronization of 4 or 5 microseconds. And that's why some cultures, to perform certain tasks, used areas with a slight resonance. Because look, if I make this sound here, this sound, it has a certain speed to reach this ear. Yes, but it takes a little longer to reach this other ear. And this difference between this ear and that ear gives this thing of 4 or 5 microseconds. And within you, in the areas of this and that ear, it connects the two. And even with my eyes closed, that sound came from the right. How do you know it came from the right? Because the sound took longer to get here, to this ear. It gets faster when it reaches the other ear because the other ear is farther away, so it takes a little longer. And this slight delay is what locates it. And if there's a phase shift from front to back because it's now passing through the ear already causes a phase change in the refraction of the sound that enters here, and it gives a different refraction to the sound that enters here. If the sound is behind you, that sound is behind me. How did you discover that the sound is behind you? Did you notice? Because you have interneurons. You have an electrical connection between brain circuits. Okay, now you understand how the process works, even regarding beliefs, blind faith, and self-performance. In this system where everything is millennia old, reinforced, and there's an intra-network connection in the brain, you can no longer question or act. You do without questioning. If that doing is in zone 3, someone is ordering you to do it, and you blindly and directly believed it. Okay, that's problematic, but that's what happens in practice. But if you go to zone 12, even if you're doing it automatically, you open your observer and contemplate your high performance doing. And sometimes it can Finish doing it and question yourself to see if you start imitating something different, a different habit, a different custom, a different belief, to try to break that blind faith, that high performance which needs a little adjustment. And normally, researchers who work with high performance athletes know that changing even a small gesture in high performance is very difficult, because you really have to revisit the imitation, the habits, and so on, and the beliefs to even change a small gesture in high performance. Okay, today the thought of the umbu trees, which anticipates the doing, which anticipates the doing of the umbu tree, the gesture anticipates thought. It is the opposite of the modern mind, someone who is always seeking validation and always thinking. And I'll look at our modern cognition. You're always based on goals and validating things. I'm going to do this. My goal is this, and I'm going to achieve this, and they'll recognize me for it. I'm going to sing, and there will be that audience. You'll be applauded. Everyone will. You understand? There is no direct, concrete, synchronized action without the expectation of receiving a benefit. So Umbus simply acted. It's like an orchard that has to bear fruit because otherwise everything will get complicated. If it doesn't bear fruit, things will go wrong. It has to bear fruit to survive. That's the idea. So you have to act. It's not about needing a reward or recognition. You just act. This is very interesting. So the hypothesis I'm going to leave you with, I'll elaborate a little so you can understand it a bit better, is that the Umbu people developed a form of integrated pre-reflective consciousness and synchronic somatic consciousness, coordinated electrical synapses, low dopaminergic dependence, and high ecological interoception. How Jackson explain all of that? Look, it's an integrated reflective consciousness. Even before reflecting on it, it's already doing. But of course, this didn't arise by chance. Of course, this started in infancy as a child, accompanying their parents in their learning, in their educational system within the forests they lived in the south of. Here in Brazil, Uruguay, it's a region 10,000 years ago. I don't know if it was so hot or cold or if it had the Atlantic forest. I believe it did. But they learned this learning of theirs is pre-reflective, but from childhood, it's through imitation. It's through imitation, the customs, the habits of children, the fussiness and high performance, and has a type of synchronous somatics, which would be synchronous somatics. If I touch things, that thing changes my thinking. Because it's something that goes back and forth like an electrical synapse, it goes back and forth. It's an interaction with the environment and it doesn't have dopaminergic dependence. What doesn't mean to have dopaminergic dependence? Dopaminergic dependence is like this. I keep getting dopamine because I'm anticipating, I'm waiting, I'm expecting things. So I keep creating dopamine, a chemical, a brain neurochemistry of reward because I'm creating dopamine. I'm receiving it not there directly. It's doing it directly without the expectation of reward, without dopamine. So it's faster. Dopamine cycles for half a second. You receive dopamine, you get addicted to it, and the next time, if you're not motivated, you won't even do it. You crave motivation, you crave motivation. In the end, when you start achieving high performance, the dopamine starts to fade and you become demotivated. It's not a problem related to your actions, it's a problem related to your dopamine addiction. That's why social media controls almost everyone. Dopamine. Social media gives you what you want to predict, what you like, because the algorithm already sees what you like. And it gives you dopamine, and you become addicted to an endogenous drug, a drug that you yourself manufacture. Looking at the shimmering blue light, that's why I recommend to everyone, always leave your cell phone in sleep mode, your computer in sleep mode, because sleep mode removes the shimmering blue light. The shimmering blue light releases dopamine in your head and disrupts sleep, disrupts the production of serotonin needed for sleep. So what's important here with the Umbus peoples is that they had low dopamine dependence and high ecological interoception. Here's something interesting. Interoception, it is a deep internal feeling. Ecologically, this feeling is related to the environment. Remember when I talked about extended proprioception? That's perceiving yourself as part of everything around you. It's positioning yourself in internal space. In that whole, for example, if I close my eyes now and do this, I perceive that my hand is open. If I have extended proprioception, I perceive the environment where I am. If I'm in a forest at a waterfall, I already perceive that environment. Ecological interception, I perceive the needs of plants and animals around me. It's a physical need. So I start acting for the ecological good, but without thinking. It's an ecological homeostasis. That's the idea I want to convey to you. Zumbus's neural faith was perhaps the first expression of high spiritual performance, not based on belief, but in bioelectrical integration with the environment, electrical synapse. The contact that the environment makes with the individual moves the individual's consciousness, which acts on the environment that moves it. It is a synchronicity, a syncretism, a synchronism, a symbiosis, a metabolism between the individual and the environment, concrete, locked. So it seems that this neural faith of the Umbus is the first expression of high performance. The Umbu consciousness has not disappeared. This is important for us today. Sometimes we say the world is out there, it's far away. No, the culture, the characters, I don't know why they became extinct, something happened. And then it involves archaeologists, anthropologists, and I have no idea what they're telling me. I'm trying to tell you. But at this moment, what we're talking about is that Ubu consciousness. That consciousness hasn't disappeared. But there's no Ubu now, as far as I know. But how can we perhaps recover that consciousness every time we create something in silence without expecting applause, recognition, and by valuing what you are doing, we touch the original consciousness, the Ubu, because it rings in our body memory. There are times when you're doing things and you don't require recognition. You don't seek recognition for what you do, and naturally you're doing it without pressure. You weren't forced to do it, you simply did it. Remember this scenario: you're on vacation, you slept well, you wake up, and suddenly you do some things, and what you did, wow, is a very cool thing for the whole society around you, and you simply didn't even see the time pass, and it was a pleasant thing for you. You did it without expecting applause. You are rescuing that original consciousness, a little bit of the consciousness of doing in high spiritual performance. It's funny how I use the term spiritual and how important the use of spiritual time is. The term spiritual has to do with the following: when I touch something, the thing touches me. That's what I want to see, what I want to talk about, spiritual. So you interact with the environment. What you perceive is also perceived by you. You are perceived by the environment that you perceive, as long as that environment has DNA with trees, with plants, with living things. Things are perceived mutually. This perception shifts from here to there and from there to here. That's spirituality for me, which I call Dana spirituality, which is when different DNAs integrate into one metabolism, into a synchronicity. When the environment is a little rough, DNA emerges. An animal, prey, someone leaves, another enters. The environment is in sync without much thought. Of course, you can use thought in words with words, but words, in fact, are simply tools for you to process, that's all. Tools to use, to be used. Words aren't meant to be words, they're meant to be used. Tools are for you to use, not to be. Belief itself is for developing faith, developing blind faith, developing performance to achieve high performance action. and no longer get lost in words, because words are tools we use to evolve in this process. Folks, that's what I wanted to leave you with. I think it's fundamental that you start to see what you do without thinking, and that it's cool. You finish doing it and it's cool, because that, and another thing, if this doing without thinking adds value to the local community, to what you perceive and what comes back, because then you are in ecological synchronicity with where you are doing it. You are entering into this idea of consciousness, which I suppose is consciousness, a boom of high performance. Until next Wednesday, a big hug to everyone.